Should officers be able to carry their own rifles on the job? It's a question a lot of people are asking now. Police departments across the metro allowing this after a spate of attacks targeting law enforcement across the country.
In the interim, until we can get rifles, I am going to allow officers to use their own if it's approved, if it's an approved rifle and they qualify, and that we provide the ammunition.
That was Oklahoma City Police Chief Bill Citty, of course, issuing that policy, but opponents say the move is making it harder to ease tensions nationwide.
This will lower trust between the people of Oklahoma City and the police force, and I think that makes for a more dangerous situation for everyone.
Joining us now to discuss, Brady Henderson, director of the Oklahoma chapter of the ACLU. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, as always.
This is an issue that a lot of people have strong feelings about. We're going to get to our viewer questions in a later segment. But first this, a lot of officers have told us, in fact, even on this show, that they feel like they have a target on their back these days. Why not allow them to carry rifles and feel safer on the job?
Well, a couple things that are important to know. One is there are already rifles in service with pretty much any police department imaginable. They're often assigned to SWAT teams, special reaction forces, those who may be doing a raid on a house, for instance. So this isn't a new idea to have rifles in the hands of police officers. What we're concerned about really is this very sudden reaction that seems almost panicked by law enforcement to say we're so afraid that we think more guns are suddenly the answer. And ironically, and I think really this is to the point of it, what folks like Chief Citty have been telling citizens for years is that more and bigger guns are not the answer to feel safer, that they make police's job harder, that they make things more dangerous in the community. And here suddenly we have law enforcement really reversing that course at a time, for instance, when there are other things that are stalled out, such as body cameras, that really have more promise in the long run in terms of keeping officers safe by restoring trust.
Don't the policies of Oklahoma City Police and other metro police departments need to evolve, as we saw with Oklahoma City Police Chief Bill Citty? Originally, he said these rifles are not the answer. Then after another attack on law enforcement, he said, you know what? I've changed my mind. I have had a change of heart. The Fraternal Order of Police is saying that the officers do not feel safe. What's to say that there's an incentive for officers to be out there if they don't feel safe? Shouldn't the police departments evolve in their policies?
Absolutely. And in fact, one of the things we've seen, I think, since we first brought out some criticism here is some very good evolution. For instance, one of the things that OCPD is now coming out with is saying that these rifles, for instance, are going to be kept in cruisers. They're not going to be slung along an officer's back on the beat. And I think things like that are actually very, very important, because what we're really concerned about is the message. It's the escalation. It's the idea that the more police look like an invading army, the more citizens treat them as an enemy. And that's ultimately the root of so much of this violence.
Are you then suggesting that the motive behind some of these attacks that we've seen on law enforcement has been generated by law enforcement? Are you blaming law enforcement for the attacks on them?
No, what I'm blaming is actually something that I think is going on both sides of this growing battle, right? And that is a fear and a distrust. It's people being ruled by this idea that says, for instance, if I'm a citizen, that law enforcement has become the enemy. If I'm law enforcement, that the people I police have become the enemy. When that happens, it really goes beyond blame. It goes beyond saying who started it. And it simply becomes a question of, well, how do we de-escalate it? How do we keep that from happening? I mean, rifles, here's the thing about them that concerns me. It's that fundamentally we're talking about an escalation. We're talking about more weapons. The problem with that is that I think long-term, it can get officers in greater danger, not less danger.
The argument, though, is that the weapons used against these officers have become escalated at this point, that we're seeing very heavily trained former veterans or veterans of our armed forces using snipers against officers, and they feel ill-equipped to respond to that kind of heavy fire from snipers like we saw in Dallas and we've seen in other ambushes across the country.
Well, and you think about something like Dallas, and absolutely, that's something new in a sense. It's also something, unfortunately, though, that many of us who work in either civil rights or law enforcement really have predicted for a long time. We've known that things are getting worse, and we've known that the longer we go, the more likely it is we see greater targeted violence between certain segments of citizens and police. And all we're really saying about this rifle policy isn't that we don't get it, isn't that we don't understand the safety concerns. It's that we want to make sure that police departments, as they react to things like Dallas and Baton Rouge, keep not only the big picture in mind, but officer safety in the long term, not the next few days, not the next few weeks, but the next few years and the next few decades.
If it's not guns, if it's not rifles that are going to protect these officers, how can we de-escalate the situation so that officers feel safe and that so that citizens feel safe as well?
Well, and I think you hit it exactly on the head. It's about citizens feeling safe too. There are, well, even here in Oklahoma City, literally thousands of encounters between law enforcement and citizens every day. Many of those are going to be confrontational by their very nature. They're going to be police saying, you're doing something wrong to this citizen. So much of it is about helping make sure that as many of those citizens as possible, first of all, feel safe, that they shouldn't have to be worried about how do I survive a traffic stop. And yet that is actually real language that right now in communities of color, mothers are using with children. How do you survive a traffic stop? Think about that for a minute. When people have that kind of fear, just like officers now saying to the FOP, we need rifles, that kind of fear motivates people to make, frankly, very poor decisions at times. It can motivate people to make irrational decisions. And when you put that with all of these encounters every day, it can put people in great danger.